solution that we have proved right now is true for any element A in G. So we can replace A by in fact any element of the group. From this we get n equal to okay, so what I am trying to do here is that I will multiply both sides by A and A inverse. A inverse from the left and A from the right. That will give me n. Okay, A inverse from the left. Okay, yes. N is equal to this because A inverse and A cancel out, A inverse and A cancel out. But we have already proved that this is contained in N, so that means this will be contained in if I take A inverse here, then I will in fact have the opposite thing. No? So instead, let us write it like this. A inverse N A inverse. Okay, there is no problem with this one. We have just switched the positions of A and A inverse. Now note carefully that this can be written as A inverse N A inverse whole inverse times A inverse, because A inverse whole inverse is equal to A. Now the fact that this inclusion is true for every element A allows us to replace A itself by its inverse. For its inverse also it will be true. So in place of A we can put A inverse. That will give us this thing. So that will also be contained in N. And from there we get the fact that this whole thing is contained in A inverse. In bracket we can use, we can write, here we have used this inclusion, A inverse N A inverse whole inverse contained in N, which is justified because A inverse is contained in N for every A belonging to G. So we have conveniently used A inverse in place of A. So now we have what we want, all the things. This is contained in N and N is also contained in this. So they are equal. Thus, is equal to N, and already A was arbitrary. So we can add the phrase for all A belonging to G. And this completes the solution. Okay, then exercise 19. This is a starred one. It is supposed to be difficult. I don't know why it has been starred, because its solution that I have got is not very long or anything difficult. Please let me know if I have made a mistake in this solution, or for that matter in any other solution. You go through all the solutions carefully, and if you find a mistake, just let me know. We will try to salvage things. If H is a subgroup of finite index, okay, in G, prove that there is only a finite number of distinct subgroups in G of the form AH A inverse. Okay, so if H is a finite index, then the number of distinct subgroups of this form is also finite. Note one thing, again I am saying, for H to be a finite index in G, neither H nor G has to be finite. In fact, we have seen one example, namely in the additive group of all integers, the subgroup consisting of all the even integers is a subgroup of finite index, where the group as well as the subgroup are both infinite, but the index is 2, which is finite. So that is possible. Okay, so since the index of H in G is finite, there are only finitely many distinct right cosets of H in G, because that's what the index is, number of distinct right cosets, and hence only finitely many distinct left cosets also. Because of that exercise 5, where we have proved that there is a one-to-one correspondence between the set of left cosets and the set of right cosets. By exercise 5 above. Okay, since AHA inverse can be written like this: AH HA inverse for all A belonging to G. Why this is possible? To answer that, you look at this. See the discussion after the proof of lemma 262. There you will see that if you take a subgroup and form the product HH, we have already seen what it means for a product of two subgroups. Okay, what it means to take a product of two subgroups. In fact, we have also shown that this itself is a subgroup if and only if Hk is equal to Kh. So in that sense, if you form this product HH, that will be nothing but H. Okay, it's quite easy to see. From this one, we are getting this one. So you can see that every subgroup of the form AHA inverse is actually a product of a left coset of H and a right coset of H. So because there are only finitely many left cosets and finitely many right cosets, the number of such possible products is finite, and as such, the number of subgroups of this form is also finite. So since this is the case, the number of subgroups of G of the form AHA inverse is finite. I mean, that's how I found the solution. I don't see any mistake or any gap in the argument. However, I am again saying you go through all the things carefully, and if you ever find any mistake or any confusion in some argument or somewhere, even if it's regarding a notation, you just let me know in the comment section below. So that's why this is also finite, and that is the solution. Now next, another starred one, exercise 20. If H is a finite index in G, prove that there is a subgroup N of G contained in H, okay, and of finite index in G, such that again that condition ANA inverse is equal to N for all A belonging to G. Additionally, can you give an upper bound? So it's somewhat like that one other exercise that we came across. Can you give an upper bound for the index of this N in G? Okay, let me put some ink. Okay, so we will start the solution like this. Since the index of H in G is finite, it follows from the previous exercise that G has only finitely many subgroups of the form AH A inverse. Let this distinct subgroups be, say, A1H, A1 inverse, A2H, A2 inverse, etc., ANH, AN inverse. These are all the distinct subgroups of G of this form. Okay. Now we are going to define N to be the intersection of all subgroups of G of this form. In other words, N is what we had in the previous, not the previous exercise, I mean the one before that, in exercise 18. Let N be this, which in our case, because there are only finitely many such, so we can write like this: AIH, AI inverse, where I is varying from 1 to N. By exercise 18, what are the things we are required to show? We have to prove that N is a subgroup of G. It is contained in H. It is of finite index in G, and also this. Okay, so these are the things. First of all, we have to show this. So by exercise 18, N is a subgroup of G such that AN, A inverse, is equal to N for all A belonging to G. Okay, this much we can say directly from 18. What else? Also, N is by definition the intersection of all subgroups of this form. No? So this is contained in EHE inverse, which is one such subgroup of that form, and it is nothing but H. So this shows that N not only satisfies these conditions, but N also is contained in H. Okay, now next we have to somehow show that this N is of finite index in G, and finally we have to find an upper bound for that index. For that purpose, we are going to define a map. Now, define a map F from the set of all right cosets of AHA inverse to the set of all right cosets of H by this formula. A general right coset of AHA inverse looks like this, where G is any element of G. Its F image is defined to be equal to H A inverse G. Okay. Where A is any element of G. Okay, that thing is understood. Now our aim is to show that this map is bijective, but first of all we have to show that this map is well defined. One thing is clear, that this is a right coset of H in G, because this A inverse G is after all an element of G. So every output is in this set of all right cosets of H in G. So we only now have to show that equal inputs give us equal outputs. So let AHA inverse G1 and AHA inverse G2 belong to this set. Such that they are equal. Okay. By the left cancellation law, we can cancel A from both sides. We have, that leaves us with HA inverse G, G1 actually, which we can just simply write like this because of associative law. And on that side we will have HA inverse G2, or the same thing, AHA inverse G1, F is equal to AHA inverse G2 F. Hence, F is well defined. Okay. So now next we have to show that F is 1-to-1. Next, let AHA inverse G, let us take 3 and 4. So it's like that other solution that we came across in that other video. So this, let us take G3 AHA inverse. This is in fact easier than showing that F is well defined. AHA inverse such that their F images are equal. Now we are going to assume that F is equal to AHA inverse G4 F. This implies HA inverse G3, because that's what this image is equal to HA inverse G4. This image is equal to this. Now you multiply on both sides from the left by A. Thus, and we can rearrange everything using associative law to have this. That is, if two inputs in the domain have the same output, then the inputs are also same. So F is 1 to 1. Okay, now how is F onto? So to see that, you take any element in the second set in the range. Let say Hk belong to G by H, that is Hk is a right coset. Okay, all we need is that we need to realize this K as A inverse something. Then Hk is equal to HA inverse AK, because then A inverse and A will cancel out, and this is nothing but the F image of AHA inverse AK. But this is clearly a right coset of AHA inverse, because AK is an element of G. This shows that F is a one-to-one correspondence or a bijection. Hence, since it's given that H is a subgroup of finite index in G, so this set of right cosets of H in G is finite, because the index is the number of elements in that set. Hence, AHA inverse has finite index in G, which is coming from the finiteness of the index of H in G, and in fact its index in G is nothing but the index of H in G. And keep in mind that this is true for any element A in the group G. So, from what was that exercise 12? So, from where we solved a similar problem, we have index of n in G is less than or equal to the product of the indices of the subgroups AI, HAI inverse, because their intersection is n. So because each one of them now has finite index, so their intersection also has finite index, and this is following from exercise 12. By using exercise 12 repeatedly, you can view n as the intersection of, say, the first n minus 1, or for that matter the first group A1H A1 inverse and another subgroup which is the intersection of the remaining ones. So you apply this inequality that we have proved in exercise 12. You recall that in exercise 12 we found an upper bound for the index of H intersection K. Now here in place of H and K we have subgroups that look like this, and instead of having just 2 we have a finite number of them, which may be 2, maybe more than 2. Okay, so we are repeatedly using the result of exercise 12 here to write like this, and we have proved that all of them are equal to this index. So that's why this becomes equal to index of H in G whole to the power n. So in this case this is an upper bound for the index of n in G, and in this process we have also shown that the index is finite. Okay, so here the solution ends.